very lucky we had Scarlett collecting everything that we said. So we were able to have quite a free conversation, and we had a scribe, which was amazing. So we looked at all the barriers, and then we started to look at what could practically be done for that. And I'll hand over to my esteemed colleague. We got down to 4 principles, which is a speedy way of saying we had a lovely chat, and Scarlett did loads of work on our behalf.
I'm going to kind of delegate because I'm catching. I'm going to be the honest. I was having an amazing conversation with these 2 gentlemen, but I'm slightly drifted off from that. But, so I think one of the things that we did talk about, which is really interesting and came up at the beginning, is how do you help people understand? And I think, Jade, as you just talked about how the board, lots of us are trying to kind of change our organisations, and we talk about changing the board. But the board's a series of individuals. So are we better focused on influencing and talking to individuals than we are shifting the board? So applying the principles that were on the bottom of how they optimise the colleague is the way in that we're currently probably applying many to the rest of it. But
I can't see from then, sorry. I was also out of the room for 30 minutes, so we're very disjointed.
As you're reading, one of the things that Jay also said was the board is individual people, but it has a persona. And I think we're probably quite conscious of that. So it's influencing individual people and that persona of the board to care and want to participate and want to put some money in this.
So we had a lot of conversation, and I think something that was pertinent for us as a group was that although there's a very kind of specific topic that we're here to discuss, a lot of our interactions were very much around DEI, EDI, DEIB, D&I, whatever it's referred to in its various different guises. And that we're still fighting different battles, different barriers in terms of this as a priority, this as a topic of discussion that is a given, as opposed to just having to have somebody have a seat at the table to force that as a particular issue. So we did eventually come back to what about intersectionality, but a lot of the conversation was very much geared around how do we still come from a position of influence, how do we still sell this idea as the right thing to do with general business benefit at the same time, and that we're still on that journey despite I don't know how many numbers of years of experience there are in this room. But when we kind of came down to our kind of focus areas, priorities, the summaries around our discussion, articulation of risk. So, you know, we talk about the benefit to doing this, but what's the risk if it doesn't happen? What's the risk of not just from a DEI perspective, from an intersectionality perspective as well. So if I speak openly with my organisation, I think we're in a position now of isolating and pitting different groups against each other. And then anybody that sits within that intersectionality space feels lost and doesn't feel that sense of belonging. So actually, there is a tick box element to trying to do the right thing that's actually potentially more harmful than not doing anything in the first place. And kind of being able to articulate what that risk is, and you summed it up in terms of 3 different areas, didn't you? You talked about accepting the risk. Sorry, I can't remember.
Yeah, so if you, in our organisation, if you've got a risk, you would mitigate it, you know, you'd do something about it, you'd transfer it off to someone else, delegate, or you'd accept it. And that's the status quo. You accept it. Doesn't mean it gets better, but it just stays the same, which in itself is really unacceptable.
I don't know if you want me to just keep talking because I'm sick of my own voice this way.
Sounds good.
So over 20 minutes you get voluntold. So we talked about advocacy and solidarity. We had a long conversation around kind of allyship, and again I think there's a piece there around being told you're an ally, what it means, etc, etc. But actually again there's another piece of segregation, because the reality being that for this to truly be impactful and for us to really embrace intersectionality, everybody needs to care about it, everybody needs to be invested in it. So when we're talking about what are we asking for, we're asking our organisations to remove barriers and truly focus that element around participation that is inclusive for all. So actually, it's not a big ask. It's not an action list as long as you're on to doing that. It's around the core values that we want them to lead from the front that says, by removing all barriers, we're going to embrace that intersectionality, because it doesn't matter who you are, your individuality is embraced and there's nothing restricting you from developing in that environment. We talked a lot about safety as well, safe spaces, safe environment. talk about safe spaces from both if you are an individual from an intersectionality perspective, also if you're a manager that doesn't quite understand it, and where's your safe space to make mistakes and ask bold questions and, not feel that fear factor. I missed this section, the solution focused, asset focused, if somebody else wants to. So solution focused and asset focused.
What you win versus what you win.
Yeah, I suppose you're all going to look at me now. I think it's something about getting to a point where everyone can articulate at different levels what the value add is, right? It's quite easy for people that have been trained a certain way to think about, I'm a solutions architect, so therefore this is what I'm going to try and produce that product.
Yeah.
But to be patient enough and build a culture, this is all cultural work, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Therefore, the way that we look at it isn't about kind of like creating a census quarterly or annually to say, has it done what we wanted to do? But being patient is saying that the value add is in the future. So we might monitor outcomes now because we've tried something different. What we want to see is creating something that will be sustainable for the future, so that the generation that's coming in after us doesn't have to suffer the same kind of like burden that we're facing now. So there's something about that value add has got to be translated into the way that we discuss things. And for the board in particular, because one of the primary functions of the board is strategizing, less so about getting into the detail in the organization, is being disciplined in not looking for that impact in year one and period one. It's about saying, right, we will exist in 5 to 10 years time. Who do we want to be as a result of that? And that risk thing that we played out there, this I think was fantastic, because then we can start having conversations about our matrix says we will not tolerate this, but actually our outcomes are saying we are. And that conversation is going to be about how do we kind of like close the gap or shift that behavior to match what our tolerance picture is.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think we talked about the why, to being really clear and explain why is this important, being authentic about that as well.
Yeah.
So not just being sort of like window dressing, but actually explaining authentically, this is important to us as a company, and here are the reasons why. And articulating that in a way that makes sense for you as an organization and for your customers and for your employees. So explaining that and then being really open and vulnerable to say that, we're all on this together. It's a learning journey, right? And so we all want to create this sense of belonging and also helping people feel safe to be themselves in work. So I think that is something that we need to encourage as well, for our leaders to do, have that conversation.
And we get some biscuits.
Yeah, a lot. I think. Sorry.
I was just going to say one powerful thing that came out of your kind of like protocol return was that I think it was a killer question. What are we asking our organizations to do? And that intersectionality isn't a one-dimensional thing. It's multifaceted. So to bring that to life so that people understand what it might mean to come in and walk in and they see a big black man in front of them. Actually, I'm a whole lot of other things. I do not turn up as that black person that day. I might come in as the marginalized XYZ and the like. So therefore, one thing that help bring that to life is the concept of staff stories, where people can share what their experience is, so that people can step into that understanding of what it must be to walk in their shoes or experience what they experience on a daily basis. And that translates into I must do something about it. But try to move away from that blame thing. So it's more relation rather than saying, because you have led this organization, you have made me feel like this. It's about it exists because we have not radicalized or disrupted the way that we think and look at our business.
That bit of my personal story, I think, is quite critical as well. Our businesses are driven by data, but people are driven by experiences and sharing those experiences. So actually, this is a people-focused topic. So should we be looking at data in isolation to influence, or actually we really need a strong hybrid approach of doing that, because your data is your measurement, right? You're never going to get away from that. But the thing that gets people bought in is the shock factor or the wow factor or whatever that might be. So there's a real kind of sense of how do we approach this that's a little bit different as well, I think, when we're dealing with different people. But I think for everybody, and my brain is going at 1,000 miles an hour at the minute, but I still think what the ask is really important. You know, I've got presentation to our exec in a couple of weeks, and I've been panicking about what am I actually asking for. Like it's around kind of D&I and inclusion as a whole concept. They're waiting for something tangible from me. They're waiting for me to say, I would like investment in, I would like, and it's really quite difficult, I think, to make this tangible. But we chunk it up a little bit. We start with something tangible because we're building to a bigger picture. I think it's getting comfortable with that space and trying to build a working environment that says you're safe, you're wanted, you're welcome, and why would they not want that? So yeah, I think this has been where my brain's been going 1,000 miles an hour today, is thinking about,
Yes.
we always think about a business case, but this is a people case, so how do we make it